While fans were already excited to see Jon Bernthal's Punisher back in action after his absence in Daredevil, Born Again Season 2, his new MCU special features some pretty cool parallels to Keanu Reeves' John Wick. Featuring a major turning point for Frank Castle, Punisher, One Last Kill is easily one of the most brutal MCU projects yet. After Castle killed the last criminals connected to his family's murders, Frank's now facing major consequences thanks to Ma Gnucci, the last remaining member of the Gnucci crime family, seeking vengeance on Punisher for killing her husband and sons. With Ma Gnucci putting a bounty on Frank's head, the Punisher finds himself targeted by every criminal in Little Sicily. That alone carries a similarity to the plot of the John Wick movies, though there are even more direct parallels between the two killers that are fascinating to think about as the Punisher enters a brand new MCU era following One Last Kill. The Punisher's legend in the MCU now shares a major connection with John Wick. One of the biggest reasons Keanu Reeves' John Wick became such an instant action icon is the legend surrounding the formerly retired hitman. In the very first John Wick movie, Reeves' character is said to have once killed a man with a fing pencil. Likewise, this brutal feat is eventually shown on screen in John Wick, Chapter 2, a major piece of Wick's terrifying legend as Baba Yaga. Interestingly, Frank Castle now has his own version of John Wick's legend in the MCU. While fighting off all the criminals seeking to collect the bounty on his head, Frank chooses to save and protect an innocent family rather than go after Ma Gnucci. Near the end of the fight inside the cafe, a particularly large thug gets the drop on Frank and even stabs him with a screwdriver. However, Frank takes a blue pen and repeatedly stabs his attacker, driving the pen multiple times into his arms, chest, and face. Without a doubt, this is one of the most brutally savage and bloody kills the MCU has ever shown on screen, while also mirroring John Wick and his pencils. As such, it stands to reason that the Punisher's legend has just grown after One Last Kill, his blue pen kill being just one of several that will instill even greater fear among New York's criminals, especially now that Frank's moved on from personal vengeance alone. Punisher, One Last Kill even sees Frank getting vengeance for a murdered dog. Remarkably, the John Wick similarities don't stop with improvised weapon kills, either. One Last Kill also features a key parallel to the emotional inciting incident that launched the entire John Wick franchise in the first place. At the beginning of the new MCU special, the widespread chaos in Little Sicily sees an elderly man's dog being senselessly killed by a thug. However, the ending of The Punisher, One Last Kill sees Castle taking the same thug out at the man's request, getting vengeance for the brutal crime and tragic loss. Naturally, the tie to the John Wick franchise is hard to ignore. After all, Wick's murdered dog is what brought John out of retirement, having been a critical emotional link to his recently deceased wife. Although Frank Castle's circumstances in One Last Kill differ emotionally, the thematic parallel is still pretty clear. If anything, it certainly highlights the significant overlap between the two characters as brutal killers who've lost everything and are now seeking the most lethal forms of vengeance and/or justice. Looking forward, it's going to be very exciting to see what's next for Punisher and his renewed purpose in the MCU, both later this year in Spider-Man, Brand New Day and hopefully beyond with future appearances.